All right, Big Ten time right now as we break down the weekend that was. It is brought to us by Jason's Deli. Along with Eric, I'm Rich, and let's start with the debacle in the Big House. I don't know if there's been a
not so good news.
Yeah, a name for it quite yet. That game was 13-7 at halftime. The Badgers were one score out of that football game, and I don't think there was an indication that really made you think that it was going to turn that ugly in the second half. But man, oh man, I mean, Bucky just never got it going, and Alex Hornibrook, 7 completions all night long, 100 yards, not good.
So if you want to look at his stats and say, maybe this is his worst game of his career, I mean, quite possibly it is, but, it's really simple when you look at it from Michigan's perspective. It's, what are you going to do? Stop Jonathan Taylor, held him to 101 yards, and make Alex Hornibrook throw the ball. He proved he couldn't do that. Hornibrook threw one interception that maybe or maybe not was not his fault, but then he had one where he's just like rushing and, just trying to escape the pocket. He throws it and gets pick six. So it's like, those situations and things that he's doing are costing his team, and he doesn't seem to get out of those rhythms, and he still plays at times like a high school quarterback, making some of those mistakes. I know he's still young. He's got a long way to go, though, and if you want this Badger team to be one of those teams that's talked about in the elite status and being in the top 5 and making the college football playoff, he's got to get better.
He does. And, one of the things that was kind of interesting, too, I think it was last week, it was and someone was saying, it was one of the announcers talking about the fact that the Badgers are running the same offense that they were running back in the early 90s, that not much has changed. Something's got to change. For a while there, with Paul Chryst calling plays when he was an offensive coordinator, they got pretty innovative for a while. Now you take a look at this, and they seem to be predictable, passing and predictable passing downs only, and that's hard on a quarterback, especially with a guy who has a couple of wide receivers out.
Well, I still think having no Troy Fumagalli at tight end has really hampered his development this year, Hornibrook, and he hasn't had really any sort of escape route, as far as check downs and stuff like that. And now you're looking at some of the opportunities Wisconsin has squandered this week when you had, 4 or 5 top 10 teams lose this week, and if Wisconsin had pulled it out against Michigan somehow, maybe it's just a 1-point victory, I don't care. You're still looking at still a path to get in the college football playoff. That's not going to happen now.
Yeah, Georgia looked bad against LSU. West Virginia, a bad loss. Penn State loses. We'll get to that. Washington loses in overtime to Oregon in that one. So, yeah, there was a path for the Badgers to get back into the top 10, still be in the college football playoff talk. That's gone. The good news, I guess, if there's any kind of good news, you still lead the West. So if you're tied with Iowa, you've won the head-to-head matchup in that game. So the West is still yours. You can still be in the Big Ten championship game. You could still win the Big Ten and have a nice bowl game to go to. But as far as college football playoff goes, that bubble has burst. So around the Big Ten, at least as you see in the West, Purdue, no problems with Illinois. Illinois is a train wreck. Iowa, a big win against Indiana. Nate Stanley looked pretty good in that football game.
I think that's an interesting one to look at, too. I mean, one of the things that I'm focused on it for here is Northwestern. You steal a game against Nebraska. I know you're at home, and that's just kind of one of those trap game type situation. And Nebraska's 0-6, first time ever. And you're just looking at on the wrong side of history every week for Nebraska.
Yeah, Scott Frost obviously is going to be able to keep his job, but I mean, this is ridiculous. 0-6, and you take a look at their athletes, they are not that bad. They are Big Ten quality athletes. Yeah, and they're just finding ways to lose football games at Nebraska right now, and that thing's a dumpster fire.
They blew a 10-point lead with about 5 minutes left. How about Clayton Thorson throwing a career-high 455 yards in that ball game? I mean, this was a game that Nebraska should have had, and for whatever reason, Northwestern stood up and said, hey, this is a game we're going to win.
Yeah, Thorson throwing the ball all over the field, where the week before it looked like Hornibrook couldn't throw too much against that Nebraska defense. So other games over in the Big Ten, over on the east side. How about Michigan State going into Happy Valley and beating the Nittany Lions?
Boy, yeah, that was another one of those games you'd surprised to see the outcome, but for the second straight year, Penn State has lost to Michigan State for their second straight loss. So it's just been Penn State having just bad luck against Michigan State. Michigan State on the way to, prove themselves that some of their games have not been going, maybe up to the standard that they expect from Michigan State. But then you get a big win over Penn State, which, now that Wisconsin's loss is kind of irrelevant whether or not Penn State were to have been undefeated or just a one-loss team coming in. So yeah, what it means for Wisconsin doesn't mean as much now.
Ohio State couldn't get it going early against Minnesota for whatever reason. Their offense wasn't clicking. They end up winning by 16 points, though. The Buckeyes kind of like in cruise control when you look at them right now.
Absolutely, the Gophers, they turned the ball over 3 times. They missed 2 field goals. They did limit the Ohio State running backs to less than 4 yards per carry. So some positives for Minnesota moving forward out of this loss. Didn't really think that Minnesota was going to have a chance to win that ball game, but it was closer than the 30-14 score would indicate.
Other good news, by the way, for Bucky as we finish up this one. You see here who they're playing next week. Yeah, they're playing Lovie Smith in Illinois. The Badgers will start feeling good about themselves once again next week after they roll over the Illini.
Positivity for sure.
Absolutely. We also saw Maryland crushes Rutgers. Rutgers, I don't know what they're doing in the Big Ten, but hey.
Whatever you got to do, whoever you got to talk to, get them to, and that was never really a good fit.
Yeah, it hasn't been from the start. So there it is, your Big Ten wrap-up and the sad news about the Badgers. We will have better news next week regarding them. For Eric, I'm Rich. That's Jason's Deli's Big Ten Report.